There's a version of you that showed up when you were 25 or 30 or 35. That version solved problems. That version provided. That version performed. That protected people. That controlled outcomes. That stepped back to get another perspective on the hard things. Or a version that kept moving forward towards something clear, a plan, a destination, a next step that was always visible. That version of you was real. That version worked. He was built for something specific, and he built his life around that skill. But here's what I've noticed after 25 years of working with accomplished men up close. That version is still running the show, even as the world around you has changed, even when it stopped working the way it once did, even when the people who matter most to you are trying to tell you something different. I want to walk you through the 7 versions of that man, not to diagnose you, not to fix you, but so you can actually see yourself clearly, maybe for the first time in a long time. Because you can't change what you can't see. And most men are running an operating system they wrote 30 years ago without even realizing they're still running it. You were the one who figured things out early in your career, early in your relationships. When someone had a problem, you had an answer. That wasn't arrogance, that was competence. You earned that. People trusted you because you came through, and that was real. What nobody tells you is that wiring doesn't turn off. So now, when your kid is struggling, you troubleshoot. When your partner is frustrated, you strategize. When a conversation gets uncomfortable, you pivot to analysis, not because you're trying to avoid it, but because fixing is genuinely how your brain processes care. You built that over decades because it worked. The fixer kept things from falling apart. The mismatch is specific. Your people aren't always coming to you with problems. Sometimes they're coming to you with themselves. And the fixer, the one who handled everything, doesn't have a play for that. So you're present and unavailable at the same time. You're there and they can feel that you're not quite there. You're doing everything right by the old playbook. The old playbook just doesn't have a chapter for this moment. And this isn't a character flaw. This is a skill applied in the wrong moment. You were the one who made sure everything was handled. Bills, stability, the roof, the tuition. You showed up and covered things. You made sure the people around you didn't have to worry about certain things because you handled them. That was how you loved people, practically, consistently, without needing to say it out loud all the time, and it worked. For a long time, it worked perfectly. The provider is not a small thing. A man who is reliable, financially responsible, and consistently present for his family, that counts. That matters. But here's what's harder to see. Somewhere along the way, providing became the whole answer, not part of an answer, but the whole answer. Providing became your identity. You became the provider in the same way some men become their job title. It tells you who you are and what you're worth, which means when the provision is complete, when nobody needs it in the same way anymore, when the mortgage gets paid and the kids grow up, you're left holding the title with nobody to give it to. And the people who have been watching you provide for years didn't need as much as a provider as they needed you. Not what you bring, you. And that's different. And the provider, without practice at it, doesn't always know how to be that. You got good at this because it worked. Being impressive, being capable, being the one people could count on to walk into a room and handle it. You earned that. Nobody gave it to you. The performer showed up and produced results others couldn't. Now, here's the part that's harder to say. At some point, performing stopped being something that you did and became something you were. Being capable isn't a hat you put on and take off anymore. It's the whole outfit. So you keep performing for the people at work, for the people at home, sometimes just for yourself in the mirror, because not performing feels like disappointing. The people who matter most to you know what you're capable of. They're not unclear on your resume. What they don't know is what you're like when you're not being impressive. They've seen the performance so many times, they've stopped expecting the man underneath it. Some of them have even given up looking. That's not a crisis, that's just a drift. And it's been going on quietly long enough that it feels like that's just how things are. However, it's not how things have to be. You learned early that your job was to keep things safe. Maybe it was your family, maybe it was your kids, maybe it was making sure nothing bad snuck up on them. You positioned yourself between the people you cared about and the things that could hurt them. That's earned respect. But the protector has a problem he doesn't always see. He doesn't know how to put the shield down. So he manages his kids' disappointments instead of letting them feel them. He absorbs his partner's bad news before she can even say it out loud. He controls the temperature in every room he walks into, lowering the pressure before anyone has a chance to feel it. He keeps watch even when there's nothing threatening. He protects people from the very struggles that could have made them grow stronger. And the people around him, especially the ones who love him the most, start to feel managed instead of known. Real intimacy requires some exposure to the hard things. The protector typically won't allow it. He thinks he's keeping people safe, but he's actually keeping them at a distance. The shield that was built for protection became a wall somewhere along the way. He just can't see it from the inside. You figured out quite early that outcomes were more manageable if you stayed ahead of them. So you learned to read the room, anticipate the problem, adjust before anyone had to ask. You got really good at managing perceptions and steering situations towards results that made sense. At work, that made you effective. In relationships, it made you the one who held things together. The controller is not a villain. He's a man who learned that vigilance produced better outcomes than just letting things unfold. And in a lot of situations, he was right. The attention to detail produces results. Here's what it doesn't produce: genuine trust. The people closest to you can feel the management. They may not have the words for it, but they know when they're being steered. They know when a conversation has a destination you've already picked. They know when your listening is actually waiting. And over time, quietly, without any dramatic confrontation, they stop bringing you the real stuff. Because the real stuff doesn't fit into the managed version of life. Control at its root is a fear response, not a weakness, a response to something that once made control necessary. The problem is the fear doesn't always tell you when the situation changed. So the controller keeps running the protocol long after solving the problem. You learn that some things go better when you don't engage directly. Conflict that burned out on its own. Conversations that would have been worse if you jumped in. You got good at reading the temperature and pulling back when it was rising. It kept things from getting worse. Sometimes it kept everything from falling apart. The calculator is not a coward. He's a man who absorbed a lesson about how things go when you push back, and he adjusted. Maybe it was early. Maybe it was a household where conflict meant something bad was about to happen. Maybe it was a relationship that taught him the cost of staying in the room when things got hard. He learned, go quiet, wait it out, let the storm pass. That lesson probably served you well for a while. The problem is, people who matter to you, your partner, your kids, your closest people, started reading that silence differently than how you intended it. You weren't quiet to keep the peace. They heard it as not caring. You pulled back to let things calm down. They felt you disappear. You waited for the right moment to engage. By the time it came, they'd already stopped expecting you to show up for it at all. The calculator does not create distance on purpose. He creates it by default. And the distance is real, whether it's intended or not. You had a roadmap for a long time: college, career, building something, raising kids. Hitting milestones you could point to. You knew how the thing worked. You worked hard, you progressed, you provided. The next step was always identifiable. You were moving towards something. That motion had weight and direction. And then somewhere in the past few years, the map ran out. The job changed or ended. The kids grew up and left. The relationship shifted. The milestone got reached, and the feeling on the other side wasn't exactly what you thought it would be. Your plan just lost its shape, not dramatically, but steadily, until the version of the future you've been building towards didn't quite fit anymore. The drifter is not lost in crisis. He's not failing. He's functioning. He gets up, he moves through the day, he handles what's in front of him. He's just doing it without a clear sense of where he's going or why the direction matters. The drift is quiet, and that's what makes it hard to name. It doesn't announce itself, it just settles in. And one day you look up and realize you've been coasting on momentum from a life that was built for a different version of you. Waiting for a new roadmap to appear hasn't worked, and it won't. The next chapter doesn't just arrive, it gets built. Now, you might have seen yourself in one or more of those. You may have seen pieces of yourself scattered across all seven. What matters the most is this: none of these versions are wrong. None of them are broken. They were all built for something real. They all solved something. They all got you to this point in your life. But here is what I know after working with men like you for over 2 decades. That version is still calling the shots, and it's running an operating system that was designed for a different time, a different role, a different version of the world, and a different version of you. You can see it now, and that matters because you can't change what you can't see. The question isn't whether you're a fixer or a provider or any of these other archetypes. The question is whether that version is still serving who you're becoming or whether it's keeping you from it. And that's where the next chapter starts, not in what you've built, but in who you actually are beneath it. Hey, if you like this video, go ahead and comment and subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell as well. And we'll see you next time.